All right. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. I'm Apostle Cecil Hatchett, and we're back at Pope Folk Community for Justice. And I just wanted to thank a lady by the name of Darlene that was helping me fill out some paperwork to get some help from the project is called Helping Elderly People, and I'm trying to pull her name up, or the name of the organization. It's called Elders in Action, and that's her card there. And later on, hopefully I'll be able to get you the phone number. But if you can see that phone number on the show, you can see that if you call the Elders in Action, they'll help you file the proper paperwork when you're trying to get a hold of the Oregon State Bar, and you need someone to talk to or get yourself an attorney to represent you in whatever case you're pursuing. I'm pursuing this foreclosure case that I'm trying to pursue. Many people are aware of it because sometimes people stop me on the street and say, "You still working on that?" Yes, I am. And I try and help a lot of people work on their foreclosure notices or things that people have tried to do to them. And these people here for elderly people in action, or Elders in Action, they were very helpful to me in trying to move my paperwork forward, because there's a lot of things that I need to do and say, and I'm not just trying to send any old kind of paperwork. And so they can help me get my spelling correctly and everything else did right, because when you're African American or Negro, colored, black African American, you been through the educational system, and you get a funky education or worthless education, and then you have to make do with that, and then you become a parent, you got children, and you got a lot of wonderful things going for you, but you have to still keep making that money in order to sustain yourself and your wonderful children or family or people that you're dealing with. So I just want to let you people know that me as a Negro, colored, black African American, and Negro is what I really want to be recognized as, because the struggle still goes forward. And that's what I want to tell you people about. That's why that gentleman that had that incident with the 5 police officers and or took their lives, and 14 people shot, or whatever the number was. A lot of people would like to treat him like he's a traitor or some kind of a coward, which he isn't. He was sick and tired of being sick and tired. He was 25 years old. He served his country from 2009 until 2015. So he's a war hero, and he's been to war and fought for this country. But when you come back and you find out that people are still killing Negro, colored, black African Americans, and then policemen are being restored back to their jobs after they give you some wishy-washy conversation about somehow the individual bought it on themselves, and for whatever reason they justify the murder or the killing, and then they try to that guy gets or put back on the police force, and then innocent people get killed because of that, because people are tired of being killed, and then later on finding out later on that nothing's going to be done, or something small is going to be done, but nothing major being done, and that's horrible. But my heart goes out to the 5 officers that were killed, and their families and everybody. At least they know how we feel, because we as Negro, colored, black African Americans are killed all the time. 80% more, or 8% more blacks killed than anybody. And these are horrible things that are going on. And I was looking at Obama was doing a town hall with a bunch of people, a bunch of African Americans and people that were killed in that Dallas or in that Texas killing, and they were trying to convey their feelings on what we could do and make things better. And I'm all for better and for trying to do things. He made a statement about, well, we need more money for our police officers. These are conversations always we need to give the police more money for what? How big of guns are going to carry? And how many, they got weapons all the time. They got stun guns, they got all this stuff, but it was just like the thing where they killed that brother in Florida, I believe it was, I don't know exactly. But when they went in, they were reported or received a call that this black guy or Negro colored black African American. I just use all 3 titles or 4 titles. I don't care. It's just that it's supposed to be waving a gun and it's supposed to have a weapon on him. So when you proceed with caution, you don't run in to try and hit him with a stunning gun and then get into a physical confrontation with them, tackle him, and then putting yourself in harm's way to justify shooting them. And that's what they did. What they did is when they ran into tackling and first hit him with the stun gun and you're down there involuntarily, there's nothing you can do. Your muscles on your body lock up. Your body is incapacitated, and you're not in no decision making state of mind to reach for a gun if you got a gun, or to go for a weapon if you have a weapon. And then what you do is shoot him a couple of times, 6 times, whatever the case may be. And then pretty soon they started showing the pictures of, he had access to going for his weapon. They got to know that when you shoot someone with a stun gun, you are supposed to put hopefully some distance between you and the individual, because you're exacting an arrest, and you're trying to let the person know, get on the ground, lay down, stretch your arms apart, or however you want them to make your arrest easier, and then deal with it in that way. But when you just run in and go getting into a wrestling match with a person, you got your guns on your hip. Your guns are always in harm's way. So don't be trying to make physical contact, because you know eventually you're going to shoot them, and you're going to just, for some quick draw McGraw justification on murdering this man. And so that's what's so sad. And that's what that gentleman that owns the store or business says. We filmed everything, and they just ran and shot him with a stun gun, and then he was rushed him to the ground, and then they shot him. And I'm saying that's just a horrible way to go about trying to bring someone into justice. And then the conversation was, well, he was a person for domestic violence, and he had an illegal weapon on him, so here's another charge. But you didn't shot him to death, so it don't make no difference how many charges you stack up, light or strong. It doesn't make no difference. The man's life is gone, and his son's 15, his dad's dead, and the children's dad is dead, and that's what's so sad. And then the police officers are explaining on the television that, and we went into his pocket and they removed an item. We knew they removed a gun because this clerk mentioned it, that said we got cameras seeing everything, and they came and confiscated his cameras and from his store or business, and then later on now I see a lot of different things that was talking about. It looked like the police officer was standing back and doing different things, but they were down on the ground, and the officer's friend told him, the officer told the one officer, that he has a gun. They already has him accosted and held down, and then next thing you know, bam, bam, he's shot. I don't know how many times, because they didn't show where the bullet is being discharged and the fire is coming out the gun, because that's what normally happens. Everything's like freeze frame, and yet still everything is going, and you hear the pop, pop sound. And then, so these are kind of things where people are trying to keep their jobs because they're making grand theft money and they like their jobs, but they don't care about Negro, colored, black, African Americans' lives, or not to the point of where they're trying to balance it out to saying we need to bring these individuals to justice. I know you get in a situation where somebody starts shooting at you and going wild and hands flailing and got guns waving and whatever the case may be. Some kills are legitimate kills, but these particular kills where that young lady was sitting in a police car and the tail light is out, and then her boyfriend is supposedly, she thinking in her mind, taking the softest route possible, that his arm's been shot off. So she's not even looking at the bullets passing through his arm into his heart or in his vital areas, and his life is going to be extinguished, because while the officer is there trying to get her under control, or not like she was out of control, she was very calm, but they was talking to her like they were still trying to exact the arrest, but he's trying to justify it. I told him to put his hands up, and she said, no, sir, you didn't say that. You said that I need to see a driver's license or your wallet. And when he reached there to get his wallet, the guy in his head is thinking the man's going for a gun, and bam, 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 you just shot him to death. Or he later on dies at the hospital. I don't know when, but that's what's so sad, because you got enough policemen if you're exacting a stop, and then you got enough policemen around. I don't know exactly how you would handle it one way or the other, but just pulling your gun and just thinking, well, man, I got an easy kill. And good thing that little 4-year-old girl was in the back seat. She basically, as far as I'm concerned, saved her mama's life. And that's what I want all you people out there in TV land to know. Everyone stayed calm, tried to work the matter off. He's trying to put your hands up. And if she'd have made any kind of gesture, he'd have smoked her too or killed her too. And she very calmly said, whatever she was doing it very cool, calm, and collectively. So that's what I'm saying to all you people out there in TV land. Black folk are sick and tired of being sick and tired of watching us be killed and murdered. And that's why I was happy when the flag was flown at half-mast or whatever the case was, that maybe that showed some sadness for all the Negro colored African Americans that had been killed or murdered. And then the police later on the guy gets gets off with pay, so he's getting off with paid relief. So his money never stopped. He's just on vacation, as far as I'm concerned, and that's what happens because no money stops. But that girl's boyfriend, when he was shot, he was dead, and no income for her or her baby or nothing of this nature. So these are the sad things about when you kill a Negro, colored, Black, African American. People just treat it like, well, we do our job and we're in harm's way. We every day are going out there putting our lives in harm's way. That's the job that you selected, and you're going to be continually putting your life in harm's way because you're accepted that job. Just like a fireman, he can't pick his fires to go to. He's going to go to whatever fire that he has to fight and deal with, but he proceeds with blessed caution or righteous caution, or because he wants to come back home to his family or to his wife and family or to whoever, his whatever, just come back alive. And when you're a policeman, don't get caught up in the fact that I got a gun and I can terrorize people or shoot people, and people are welcoming us back into the fold with open arms, because now you're taking innocent people and getting them shot because you silly, crazy people got guns that don't need to have them and should be taken away from you. And that's the sad part about it. And so we'll all just be patiently waiting to see how this murder or a crime gets covered up or cleaned up, and this person can be restored back to his job, saying that, oh, well, I told the guy to pull his hands up, and she made it very clearly, no, you didn't. You wanted him to show you his identification, and he reached back there, and bam, he still had his seatbelt on. To show you how sad it is. If we ever played a movie again, if you look at whatever you will look at, you'll see he's still in his seatbelt, so he ain't trying to go for his gun or do no quick draw McGraw type crap. It's just sad how Negro, colored, Black, African Americans get lives snuffed out, and then policemen bring them back into the fold saying it's going to be all right, and you get pats on the back and all kind of love, but that person have lost a loved one in their family. And we as Negro, colored, Black, African Americans are so used to this that people are trying to treat us like, well, we need to rise above it. And I'm just saying, well, we have forever been, you murdered Dr. Martin Luther King, and everybody's rising above it, rise. But we're trying to get justice for all human beings. We're all human beings, and let's help and work with each other as human beings. And like I was saying, I was explaining to people about the elderly action thing, about I had to go to them to get help, to help me legally fill out my papers for the Oregon State Bar and to the civil rights people, because I'm trying to communicate a message. I've been done wrong and I need to get done right. And when I went there, it's just a very lovely lady. She's an elderly lady, and I'll show her picture up here. She helped me put up on the and she's in a wheelchair and just very kind, good-spirited, warm-hearted, and everybody in the office was very kind to me. And it was over there on 1411. I don't know the exact address, but maybe, anyway, thank you, Cecil. We got her name up on the board here. So if you ever need to get help, if you're poor and don't have money or don't have a great education or don't have nothing going for you, these people will get a letter out to wherever it needs to be gotten out to and help you help yourself to be a better individual, or to at least get the right attention towards your matter. So don't be singing woes me to yourself. you're looking at Pofolk Community for Justice. Sister Ellie and Brother Ron is making all this wonderful information available to all you people out there in cyberspace to help you help yourselves to be better individuals. And I don't care what your race is. I don't care if you're po-black, po-white, po-Chinese, Indian or Native American or whatever you are, or poor brown or Mexican or whatever. If you need help, there's places that will help you help yourself. And these people were very kind and warm and affectionate as far as caring about my cause and helping me to move forward. And I am greatly appreciative to these people. And she was very, anything else you need? Is there anything more you would need me to help you do? And I said, no, I'm fine. Thank you very much. And me and my grandson left, and but they helped me get that information out. And then I ended up getting an attorney, which is Andrew Long, which is my attorney right now that I got from the Modest Means program. We'll see what he does for me in the future, but at least I'm moving forward. And then the civil rights people contacted me to find out, well, what's going on with me, because they tried to get a hold of me on the phone and they weren't able to do so. And I'll just show you this piece of paper here, letting you know that they contacted me to find out where we've been trying to call you and your phone hadn't been working. It was down for a minute, but it's up and running, and I want them to help me legally get justice and bring these evil people to justice that have tried to wrong me. So I want you to know that I don't stop, and don't you people out there in TV land stop. I don't care what your race, color, ethnicity. I don't care what your sexual preferences. I don't care. If you need justice for all, then just for all, you deserve to have that. And if I can find or contact anyone to help you help yourself, then I'll do that. And please come on my TV show, A Pofolk Community for Justice, and speak to the people out there about what's going on in your life and everything. And I already wrote a letter to President Obama. This is a letter that I sent out a long time ago to President Obama. And I know his presidency is about up in 6 months, but years ago I sent him this letter telling him how worthless the judicial system was to me and how they put me in prison and done me wrong and played me out of pocket. And I was trying to get justice. And of course, it never got no traction with him, but at least I have the letter showing his compassion for my struggle moving forward. And I talked about racism and everything I could possibly flow out of my mouth. And I need to get some glasses, which I'm working on now, because there's a lot of stuff that I need to do and a lot of people I need to write and contact. But until I get that, you can't do everything with magnifying glass, and you honestly need something to, you can't use a magnifying glass and be writing at the same time, be looking at words at the same time. So these elderly people, elderly people were helping me. Me being a senior citizen was helping me to move forward, and I'm just very thankful for all that. So, and in a minute, I'm going to show you this a movie regarding the. I'll move this here. I'm going to show you a movie regarding about the 9/11 and trying to bring these people to justice, because all these innocent people were murdered or killed, and everybody's trying to blame the 19 people with the conspiracy theory with the box cutters and acting like those planes flew into the Pentagon, and we know good and well that's just a straight flat lie. But we got people in power looking straight face and acting like they really are trying to solve the problem, but already 10 years have passed, more than that, but really 10 years have passed, and that's why I played the movie 10 Years of Deception. But I'm gonna play a snippet of a movie that I have here, and I'll be putting that on. Hopefully it'll be coming up in a moment. And that's what I'm working on right now, is trying to get that.
I mean, did you feel that you had a kind of moral duty to make this film? Is that the thinking behind it?
Absolutely. That's why we tell people, don't worry about copyrights. Just get this thing and make copies of it in your DVD player and get it out to other people. And really, I think that's how the message began to spread so quickly. We had reports back from some people that had made literally hundreds of thousands of copies that they were giving out for free. So we were thrilled to find out that this information was getting out to people. I don't think the American people quite get it, that this September 11th terrorist attacks have been used to lull the American people into a sense of fear and fright, and we've got to act, we've got to do something, and they've been tricked into going to war in other countries. First strike wars, where we're the aggressor, we're the people going in, starting this stuff, I don't believe the American people really and truly understand that we're not looked upon very favorably around the world, and the whole excuse that's being used to trick the American people is this episode of 911.
Explanation for what we just saw. Could it have been a 757 jetliner loaded up with passengers, loaded up with fuel, with jet engines that are 9 or so feet across, hitting that building?
It's very unlikely, to put it lightly. There's no, as we saw in the video, there's no marks. The width of the hole was at most 90 feet wide, and a 757 is 125 feet wide, and there are no marks on the sides of the buildings at where the planes or the wings of the plane would have had to have hit if it was a 757 plane. So obviously on that point alone, you would have to say that the suggestion that a 757 hit or Flight 77 hit the building is unlikely.
I think we have to sort of define who we mean by the American government, because I think it's likely that it was a small part of the American government, a group associated with the Bush administration, acting alone. Some might call them rogues, some might refer to them just as the neocon group, however you want to refer to them. They get carte blanche as a result of this. There's a significant history. We've got Lusitania, Pearl Harbor, of attacks occurring that were either facilitated or at least allowed to occur to get the American people behind what would otherwise be completely unacceptable foreign policies.
Let me just ask you mentioned Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor was an attack on the American Navy by the Japanese.
Yeah.
So that wasn't that wasn't terrorists with box cutters, was it?
No, it wasn't, but there's absolutely massive amount of evidence to say that it was provoked. The defense that would normally be put in place to allow Pearl Harbor not to have occurred was deliberately removed. Key assets were not in Pearl Harbor that would normally have been in Pearl Harbor. Defensive controls that should have been there were not there. And a mountain of communications, information and intelligence that should have been made available to the admirals and the military in Hawaii was not provided to them and was stalled in Washington deliberately. So that the attack could take place, there would be sufficient loss of life, sufficient shock among the American public, and the Second World War, the entry of the United States into the Second World War would be facilitated by that action.
Keep in mind that each ring of the Pentagon has an outer and inner wall, each wall approximately 18 inches thick of steel-reinforced concrete. That means that each ring consisted of 36 inches or 3 feet of steel-reinforced concrete for a total of approximately 9 feet of steel-reinforced concrete. Question: could a 757 have pierced 9 feet of steel-reinforced concrete and left a 14 to 16-foot hole and no wreckage? If not, what could have created that type of damage? On our radio program, The Power Hour, we have a lot of veterans and military experts that listen in, and many have called up and agreed that it could not have been a 757 that created that damage, but in fact had to be something else altogether. What could have caused that damage? Some call it a bunker buster or a missile.
According to Donald Rumsfeld, that was made by the nose of the 757,
Which is made of aluminium.
Yeah, and very
that's
sensitive.
aluminum, William.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of military experts and weapons experts have suggested that could only have been made by a missile or a shaped charge that makes that kind of perfectly round hole.
Not only do we have a very small hole that is completely inconsistent with the theory of a 757, but we have the Pentagon, which has to be one of the most highly protected buildings in the world. Not only does it have incredible surveillance, but it also has incredibly sophisticated air defense systems.
So you mean they would have fired a missile?
Yeah, they'd have shot it down.
757 heading for it.
Well, somebody had to stop that happening. Now, it either was deliberately overridden, or the system regarded whatever was coming in as a friendly object, and that had to have been programmed into it. So that's sort of an absolutely key point, that all these systems didn't work. The other thing is, this building has incredible surveillance. Every corridor, every wall, every roof, everything of the Pentagon is under camera surveillance.
So if they wanted to, they could show us film of the plane in slow-mo penetrating these 9 feet of steel-reinforced concrete and not burning any books or anything.
Yeah, exactly. And the wings folding up and the engines tucking themselves away and the luggage evaporating and all the things that would have had to have happened.
We were sent some photographs that were taken apparently right after the event and before the outer walls had collapsed. When examining these photographs, we can clearly see that the area in question had not yet collapsed. In fact, there is very little evidence of a hole big enough to accommodate a 757. The hole that we do see is approximately 14 to 16 feet across. Question: how does a 757 fit into a 16-foot hole and leave no damage or wreckage on the outside of the Pentagon? These are questions that deserve serious scrutiny. Let's take a look at some of the photographs that were taken before the outer wall of the Pentagon collapsed. In this first photograph, we can see the firefighters pulling the hoses away from the fire truck. In the foreground, we can see wire spools that were left on the front lawn of the Pentagon. After all, this section of the Pentagon was under renovation. We'll use these wire spools as reference points. Also, to the right of those wire spools and on the face of the Pentagon, we can see that some concrete facing has broken away. We'll also use this as a reference point as we examine these photographs. Now, to the left of that area where the facing has broken off, we can clearly see that the Pentagon has not yet collapsed. There are some flaming areas, and that area appears to be the only section where there is a hole approximately 14 to 16 feet. Question: how does a 757 fit into a 16-foot hole and leave no wreckage on the front of the building? We can also see that the roof of the building does show fatigue, but has not yet collapsed. In this photograph, an astonished onlooker sees exactly what we're seeing. The Pentagon had not yet collapsed. And again, there is no sign of any wreckage whatsoever. No tail, no fuselage, no wings, no wheels, no engines, no seats, no luggage, nothing on the outside of the Pentagon. Pentagon roofline is clearly visible, and again, it is under fatigue, but it had not yet collapsed. As we examine this next photograph, let's take a good close look at the lower left corner. You'll see engine 331 from the Metropolitan Washington Airport Authority, and we contacted the fire chief from this engine company. Chief Plower agreed to come on our radio show along with 2 of his firefighters, but 1 hour before airtime, they canceled. We were told that the 2 firefighters had been placed on indefinite leave. When we look at this photograph, we can see that the fire retardant foam is being sprayed on the front of the Pentagon, and again, the area in question had not yet collapsed. And you can see, right in the center of the photograph, a big area where some of the concrete facing has broken away, and it appears that this is the only major hole in the front of the Pentagon. Again, is this hole big enough to accommodate a 757? And where is the wreckage? In this photograph, we again see engine 331 and fire retardant foam being sprayed on the front of the Pentagon.
Who can call the American government, if you like, to account? Who can say in America, let us see those clips? Why is nothing happening? That's what I don't understand.
This goes all the way up to the president. You'll remember it was at his request that the networks began to stop showing all of the footage of the collapse of the buildings and anything that would remind them of 9/11. They only bring those up when they need to get reelected. You'll notice all of the scenery at the Republican National Convention was nothing but images that reminded people of September the 11th. So they bring it up when it's convenient for them, but they won't release this information. This is what it boils down to: is they have 84 videos in their possession that they won't let us see. They keep telling us to swallow the official story. We keep poking holes in the official story. So somewhere along the line, it's got to break.
In the September 24th, 2001 edition of People magazine, on page 34, there was an interview with Louis Caccioli, a 51-year-old firefighter assigned with Engine 47 of Harlem, New York, and he had this to say. We were the first ones in the second tower after the plane struck. I was taking firefighters up in the elevator to the 24th floor to get in position to evacuate workers. On the last trip up, a bomb went off. We think there was bombs set in the building. Well, Louis Caccioli isn't the only firefighter that claims that there were bombs or explosives going off in and around the World Trade Center.
At least 2 blocks, and we started running. Floor by floor, it started popping out.
It was if they had detonated.
Detonated.
They were planned to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
All the way.
Joe, talk to me about this.
Yeah, the holes in the U.S. government's 9/11 conspiracy theory, because that's what it is.
It's their conspiracy theory.
Well, they have a conspiracy theory.
It's not the conspiracy theorist conspiracy theory. It's the U.S. government's conspiracy.
Well, no, there
theory.
are two 9/11 conspiracy theories.
Okay.
Right. A conspiracy being that a group of people conspired together to carry out the 9/11 attacks.
19 people.
The government's
with box
conspiracy
cutters
theories
or
is
Stanley
that,
blades.
and the alternative conspiracy theory is that it was the U.S. government themselves or a faction therein.
Okay.
So yeah, there are so many holes in the evidence for their conspiracy theory that it's laughable, and a much better and more believable, with much more evidence to back it up, is the alternative 9/11 conspiracy theory, which is that it was the U.S. government themselves.
Which we see in this movie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there is so much documented evidence that there were bombs going off in the World Trade Center towers before the planes hit, above where the planes hit, below where the planes hit, and that, it seems beyond doubt that those towers were demolished.
Well, they fell in 10 seconds. Is
Yes.
that possible?
It's only...
With aviation fuel as the only propellant, if you like.
Well, logically, no. It seems that the only way that they could have fallen in more or less free fall speed was if they were brought down, if all of the resistance below was immediately and removed by explosives. And also, there's World Trade Center 7 World Trade Center 7.
Right, now World Trade Center 7
wasn't hit by any plane, was a 46-story building, had a few isolated fires, and it just, 9 hours after the attacks, it just decided to do the same thing. Well, maybe in solidarity with the two towers, it just decided to collapse all by itself as well.
Let's listen to a clip from Larry Silverstein. He was the lease owner of the World Trade Center as he gave an interview on PBS.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
Now, we've just heard Larry Silverstein making the admission that when it came to Building 7, the decision was made to pull it, a term that is used by demolition experts in bringing a building down.
The BBC announced its collapse 25 minutes before it actually
if you
came
check
down.
on YouTube, there's a video of a BBC presenter saying that we've just heard that World Trade Center 7 has collapsed, and in the background World Trade Center 7 is still standing.
So it looks like the press release went out a bit early, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just a bit in a rush. First of all, who did they kill? And it's very interesting who they did kill in the Pentagon. They killed people in the Office of Naval Intelligence and in the Office of Defense Accounting. Defense Accounting announced, in fact Donald Rumsfeld announced the day before 9/11, that there was a $2.3 trillion hole in the Pentagon's budget, and
Just
they didn't know where it had gone.
2.3 trillion?
Just 2.3 trillion. Nowadays, of course, that's just one bank rescue. And the Office of Naval Intelligence has historically been the most powerful intelligence organization in the United States, and is basically a known enemy of the neocons and their faction within the CIA and the
So
NSA.
it's infighting is what
Yeah,
they're saying.
exactly.
But the obvious reason why they would kill their own people is to garner public support, public outcry, public anguish that could then be used to back
A war in
a
Iraq.
war against, not so much against Muslims, but against the fact that a lot of Muslims live on land that the US government is kind of partial to acquiring for itself.
Strategic reason.
On April 15th of 2004, we received a news release that alerted us to a website that was entitled www.letsroll911.org. Phil Jahan, the webmaster for this website, had taken the video clips that you've just seen and slowed them down and examined them frame by frame, and what he found was astounding. There are several different anomalies that need to be examined and questioned. First of all, what is attached to the bottom of the plane that hit the South Tower? And second of all, what is that brief flash that occurs just as the plane makes impact? Now, when we first looked at this video footage, I said to myself, well, this video footage could very well be manipulated. So I wanted to check it out myself. Well, we went and found the DVD that we had purchased shortly after September 11th entitled America Remembers. This was directly from CNN. We took this DVD and put it in our machine and examined the very clip that you've just seen. Let's take a look at it. Let's take another look at this clip in slow motion, but before we do, keep in mind that sometimes the best place to hide something is in plain sight. We've all seen this video clip, and there have been many publications that have taken frames from this video and published them in hundreds of magazines. Here's an example. On page 3, a full-size blow-up of this picture. And in this magazine, it was published on page 4. And on the back of this book that we discussed earlier, it's on the back cover. I suggest you all take a copy of your magazines and books, and if you have the video footage, take a good hard look. We've all got this. Now let's take a look at this in slow motion. As the plane approaches the South Tower, notice carefully the belly of the plane. There appears to be something attached, and just as it hits the building, there's a flash. Let's take another look in super slow motion. Let's look at this photograph that was taken near Ground Zero. On the right, we see the South Tower, and the smoke that's rising into the sky is emanating from the North Tower, which is completely hidden from view. On the left, just entering the field of vision of the camera, we see the plane just before it hits the South Tower. Note a couple of items here. The engine on the right wing has a shadow, and the shadow moves towards the front of the plane and off of the plane. So the anomaly that appears to be attached to the belly of this plane could not be caused by a shadow. Also note that the item that appears to be attached to the belly of this plane is on the right side. This plane has something that is not symmetrical on the bottom of the plane. When we compare that with the bottom of a regular 767, we'll note that a normal 767 has a belly that is smooth. This plane does not. In the summer of 2003, in Barcelona, Spain, a publication by the name of La Vanguardia did an investigative report on the plane that slammed into the South Tower. After a thorough digital image analysis performed by a Spanish university, the investigators came to the conclusion that the anomaly was three-dimensional in nature and could not have been caused by shadows or reflections.
Question: is it outside the realm of possibilities that an object of this size and shape could be attached to the belly of a plane of this type?
These guys work with an unlimited black operations budget. And I'm sorry to break it to the American people, but when you want to dispose of less than a couple of hundred passengers on those planes, there's ways to do it, guys. So where the passengers are, I have no idea. Where those actual planes are, I have no idea. But what we do know is that the official story that we're being given about those planes and some of these intricate details just don't add up. We know that Flight 93 landed in Ohio because they said there was a bomb feared aboard. This was a news report that came out on CNN. All right, and the mayor even confirmed it. So here we go again. Here's another inconsistent fact. One thing that's not in the documentary is we know that, or we've been told, and I won't say where we got this information from, but we were told that the first two planes that hit the first two towers, we're talking about Flights 11 and Flight 175. There are reports that we believe that say those planes landed at an Air Force base and were offloaded, and those passengers were put aboard another plane. That's where the story ends. We don't know where it goes from there, but I think you can see where this goes. Well, people can't get a firm grasp around this thing, I don't think, because they may not understand the techniques that are used to keep people quiet. There are individuals out there who will say this is too big of a conspiracy to keep quiet. Too many individuals would be involved. Someone would speak out by now, and that's just not necessarily true. And it's not true because, I have contacts within the state and the federal government who have pointed me in a completely new direction. And I believe now that the war games that were being carried out that day, we're talking about Vigilant Warrior and those three that were being carried out. One of those in particular, I believe Vigilant Warrior, is the one where they were actually flying the planes into buildings. This was supposed to be simulated, but we know of 7 individuals who were in a room helping to remote control pilot those planes. They happened to look over at a television monitor because they were watching the ball game. They weren't supposed to have the TV, and they see, a plane is crashing into the tower, and the guy turns to someone else and says, "Man, this is great special effects. We've never had this before." They begin to realize very slowly over a 30-minute period of time, they've just killed all these people. They crashed planes into live targets. Okay? Those particular individuals wanted to speak out. They wanted to tell their story, but they were kept quiet by officials in our own government who ended up kidnapping the children. The youngest children from each family member was kidnapped. They won't speak out about it now. Most of them are very ill. They've all come down with the same symptoms. Sounds a lot like depleted uranium exposure or poisoning.
William,
So, these people are slowly dying off.
William, this is an extraordinary allegation. As far as I know, it's the first time it's ever been anywhere on the internet or broadcast. So
I've never talked about this before. We're trying to protect these people because out of the 7 children that were kidnapped, we know that 2 of them are already dead. We're trying to get the information, but we don't want to put in jeopardy those other 5 children.
Well, that is truly horrific. Let me just quickly go to my other 2 guests on the sofa here in the UK for a moment, just to reflect on that, if you would.
We're dealing with people here. People very often ask the question, or they disbelieve that the government, or that members of the government, George Bush, whoever you want to blame, would actually do this, would kill their own people. Why would they kill their own people?
And in cold blood.
Yes, how could they kill their own people? But what people have to understand is that there are a lot of scientific studies and psychological studies that have been done over the past 50 years that have fairly specifically identified a segment of the population, a small segment of the population, about 6% of the human population, who are essentially psychopaths. And that is to say that these are people who genetically, biologically, psychologically, are unable to feel empathy for another human being. They essentially have no conscience.
They could go and have breakfast after killing people. And
exactly.
Absolutely.
They simply don't have a conscience. And there have been a lot of studies done to show that this is a reality. If you then imagine that such people rise into positions of power and gather around them similar-minded people, well, you can imagine what they can do.
Yeah, and our great weakness is that we project what we couldn't do onto these people.
Exactly. When you think of a situation, you will automatically think to yourself, well, you will put yourself in that position and say, well, I couldn't do that. How could someone else do it? Well, you have to understand that not all people are created equal. Not all people are like you.
George Bush himself came out and said that there was a spy network operating inside the United States that was linked with the events of 9/11. And within a few months after 9/11 occurring, 200 spies were indeed thrown out of the United States.
From where?
From the state of Israel.
Israeli
they were all
spies?
Israeli spies.
Okay.
Now, you take that on its own, that's an interesting fact. But when you add in what's become known as the 5 dancing Israelis, which are the 5 gentlemen who were across the river from the Twin Towers on top of a van, filming the event and dancing, it would seem, for joy.
So they must have known in advance then if they had all this...
Yeah, they did, and nicely they've actually admitted to it, because once they were repatriated to Israel...
So they weren't arrested?
No, they were arrested and detained for a while, but then eventually they went back to Israel, just after a couple of months. They went onto Israeli television, and they said, we were there to document the event. That shows clear foreknowledge.
So why is this not on the BBC? Why is it not on NBC or ABC?
Look at who owns and controls the media.
A journalist was quoted as saying that any investigation of Israeli spying in the US or Israeli involvement in 9/11 was considered in the media, in the mainstream media in the US, as career suicide.
You know, where does the rabbit hole end? How deep does this go?
Well, I think people need to understand that there is a war, but it's not a war on terror, it's a war of terror. And it's against us. It's against the people of the world, the ordinary people of the world. If you look at actually what's going on, cut aside all the media, other than obviously this program, what is actually happening is we are losing our freedoms, we are losing our right to free movement, to remain anonymous in front of our governments, to all the things that are considered basic freedoms historically. And it all stems from 9/11. There is a war, and we are its victims. And people need to understand that.
Went on the internet, looked up a site for an organisation called Common Purpose, very different from the present website, and I thought, what is this? Because it was talking about future leaders in society, and I'd never heard of it. So from that point on, we started to dig, and what we discovered in Plymouth was that it was everywhere: police, hospitals, schools, Chamber of Commerce, but we'd never heard of it. So I'm with colleagues in the Chamber of Commerce who are Common Purpose, but I'd never heard of it.
And they didn't say? There was no
And they didn't say, no.
And how had they become part of Common Purpose, members if you like?
Well, the correct term according to Common Purpose is that they're graduates, but basically they had been selected to do a course, which at that stage was a course called Matrix, which was 48 hours in a secluded environment, a hotel or a small accommodation where people could stay overnight. And then following that, a day a month for a year. And
it was called Matrix. That's rather...
well, it's an interesting title, isn't it?
Yes,
but
it is.
What we were really interested in was the fact that it was talking about creating the new leaders. So you say, one, who is Common Purpose to create these people, and what do these new leaders do? And all we knew was we were living in a bit of a nightmare, because there's threats coming in. You're discovering people are members of an organisation they're not declaring, including the police. And you start to get a picture of something working under the surface of society. I'll take it a step further, because eventually a particular gentleman had a good look at the website, and what he found were documents talking about re-engineering a new society, where common purpose leaders would be the people who controlled society. And the bit that we also paid attention to is that they were talking about taking children of the age of 12 to 14 and effectively grooming them to be the new leaders. Now, when I've talked to audiences live now, quite often older people will say, this is what happened in Nazi Germany, Hitler Youth. And we started to dig, and when we started to dig, we found very interesting things.
Such as?
Well, the key bit is you find a city, which Plymouth was the first one, where you found that people were common purpose in positions of power and influence. And what we started to realise very quickly was that if you had enough people in key positions working for this organisation, then effectively common purpose could control the agenda in a city. And some of the supporting documentation that a colleague of mine, well qualified, read, said absolutely that, how to control your host city. So we began to get a picture that there was I'll call it a quasi-political organisation controlling a city by pulling the levers of key people in positions of power and influence.
So somehow they had got the buy-in of these people who were already in positions of power, is that what you're saying?
Well, those people had been given common purpose courses.
Given them, or because I believe they're sold them, aren't they?
Well, this is a very important point, because common purpose talks as though you walk into a common purpose office and say, I'd like to do the course, and you do it. That is absolutely not true, because what happens is that groups of what they call senior common purpose people in each city select who will do the course or not. And in my talks and on the website, we show documentation where people are selected, he is in the right position, this is the right head teacher, and other people are rejected. One man in Ipswich is rejected because he's too Ipswich. This is all going on out of the public eye. So what we've got is a group of individuals who could include a policeman, a council officer, a local developer, a vicar, maybe somebody from the local university. They are an advisory board for common purpose, and they are selecting in their community who is okay, who is the right material to be common purpose trained. What is actually happening in this country is it's being taken apart. I use an expression which is, why does nothing work anymore? If you look out the window and you look at what's happening in society,
Okay, so all you people out there in TV land, I just want you to understand what's going on and what's happening. We got a lot of illegal things taking place. George Bush and them is all in the thick of things, and all these people need to be brought to justice. And I want these people to be brought to justice because a lot of people just take it for granted that poor people are the cause when they're the sheep. And all people basically are the sheep because they're trying to get this new world order gag going and game going, and we need to get our minds together and get focused on pulling together as human beings, because this is one planet for all of us, all human beings, and we need to work together. So don't be standing back watching people kill people and act like it's okay, or like it's better them than me. That's a bad logical way to look at things, but it's horrible what's taking place. What I want to speak on again, I want to make sure I reiterate on the conversation making reference to talking about that gentleman that got in that shooting, and he got killed, but the sad part, he was blown up. And I just want all you people out there in TV land to understand is that instead of trying to exact an arrest, they had talked to him, logged on his position, and then sent the robot in there with a 1 pound of C4, and then cleared out the whole area saying that he may have bombs strewn about, and cleared it out for all the people for not being in that area, and then sent that robot in there and blew him to bits. So these are horrible things that happen to Negro, colored, black, African Americans. I know a lot of times people just try and treat it like, well, that could have been anybody, and he'd already killed a bunch of people. Well, a lot of people are sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I wish that people would quit trying to just bring people back into the fold, acting like nothing happened. Negro, colored, black Americans been being murdered forever, raped, burned, tortured, you name it, that's where it's been. I'm a Negro American. I have Negro parents, and they're well aware of all the horrible things that have taken place, and I'm well aware of all the horrible things that have taken place because I grew up as a Negro, and people try to like change our name or titles because there's so much fault to be laid on people because that's what's going on. Because I just want you to know in God Almighty we trust, and that gentleman that got killed, we got 1 minute? 1 minute? Okay, thank you. Okay, that gentleman that got killed, maybe he'll be remembered because a lot of people talk about it, but they don't be about it, and he was being about it. He was saying, I'm sick and tired of being I'm 25 years old. I fought for this country only to come back and watch more black people murdered or killed. So he just went off. So quit bringing people back on the police force and getting good policemen killed because of bad policemen that you bring back into police force. So pay attention to what's going on. Don't have to get more guns and more bombs or more stuff. We got this society has put a lot of money into all that in sadness or insanity. But we need to work together as human beings. And God Almighty we trust, and God Almighty loves you, and I love you too. Stay strong and stay blessed. And thank you, Sister Ellie, Brother Steve, and Brother Ron, and for everything.